Hey, I'm Alex from cnc-o-rama, and this is our second video in a series on G codes, specifically for the CNC mill. So in the last video, we covered G0 and G1, so that's the rapid and the linear moves. And then we also looked at absolute and incremental, these G90 and G91. So let's, for this video, we're going to look at G2 and G3. These are our arc moves. And once we've gone through that, we've actually covered all the, well, for the most part, like all the typical cutting motions you'll see on a CNC mill. So you actually only have linear and arc moves, and that's it. So everything else you do is made up of those kind of moves. So let's look at what our G2 and G3 are. So G2, as we saw back here, we have these clockwise and counterclockwise circular motions. So G2 is clockwise. So the way I remember it is there's two letters in CW. So 2 for the two letters. And then G3, we have C, C, W. There's 3 letters here. So I think that's the way a lot of people memorize it. It's really easy that way. And then in our G2 moves, we're going to have an X and a Y. That's the endpoint where we're traveling to, very similar to how we would in a G0 or G1. That's an absolute position where we're going. But then there's also these 2 other letters we got to think about. So I and J. So that's the center point of our arc. And this is where we, the first and maybe one of the only times we deviate from our absolute positioning. So this is where we're going to use incremental just for these 2 letters for I and J. So I relates to the X axis and J relates to the Y axis. So maybe I can draw a little X here and a Y here. So I is the incremental distance from your start point to the midpoint of your arc, and then in the X direction. And J is the same, incremental distance from the start point to the center point of your arc in the Y direction. So that may sound confusing until we kind of look at an example. So let's look at this drawing here. So this is the part we want to program. We kind of come to the start point, and then we're going to work our way around here and then arc out at the end. Oh, and I already see I messed up a little bit here. We're going to start here, linear move to here, continue for another linear move. And then if you think about any action movie you've seen, any superhero movie you've seen, or chase scene with a car, there tends to be some scene, whether it's Spider-Man, Batman, something like that, where they shoot a grappling hook or a wire to like some center point, and then they arc around that. So like there's scenes in like Batman where he shoots his grappling hook from his car to a light pole and arcs around that to make a tighter arc. So that's kind of what this I and J is. So this is our grappling hook shooting out to the center of our arc, and then we're going to arc around. So before we get to that point, let's start with what we have, and we're working in NC Viewer. So we already have some code here from the last video. I'm just going to delete back to, I guess we're going to delete to the very first line of code. So we're going to wrap it to some beginning point. So let's call that this point, which I didn't specify, but I'm going to call that x negative 0.5. And then y, so I gave you a diameter. So this green thing is your end mill. that's continuing around this toolpath. And it's a 1/2 inch diameter end mill. That means the radius of that end mill is a 1/4 inch. So if this is our origin, x0, y0, this imaginary corner where these two lines would meet, that's our origin. Our tool has to be above that by the radius of the tool. So the radius of the tool is a 1/4 inch, 0.25. So if we're going to cut along this surface, we need to be a 1/4 inch above that, which is y 0.25. So it's going to be y 0.25. And then from here, we don't know, I didn't specify like a thickness, but let's just say we're going to go to z negative 0.5. So again, that's still a rapid move. So that's our starting point. And then if you look at this block, so I gave you some outer dimensions, and then I gave you a corner radius. So all corner radiuses are the same. It's 0.75. So if you think about this, if the radius of this arc is 0.75, from the origin here, it's also 0.75. Because this is 90 degree arc, so from here to here, 0.75. So in absolute, that's x 0.75. So we're going to switch to a G1. And we could put in our x and y value. But we're already at that y position, so we don't actually have to put it in again. Let's see if I plot this. So now we're moving here. And I did notice it is a little hard to see. This grid kind of shows up funny in these videos. So hopefully if I zoom in a little bit, that'll help. Okay, so now we know that the entire length of this block is 5 inches. But we're moving to this point, which is 3/4 inch short of that 5 inch. So that's actually x 4.25. Okay. And this is, the G1 is still active here, so it's still in G1. And what we could have done, we could have just left off this step. We could have left out that and just continued all the way here. It would have done the same motion either way. But just for purposes of illustration, I wanted to leave that point in there for now. Okay, so we look at our part. We are now ready to do an arc move. So we got to shoot our grappling hook, and then we're going to this point. So first let's look at, so is this a G2 or a G3 arc? G2 is clockwise, G3 is counterclockwise. So if you look at that, it's going clockwise. All right, so clockwise is a G2. So let's start first put in G2. And then we know we need an X and a Y location. So where are we moving to? We're moving to this location. So if this top line represents Y0, we're 0.75 below that at this point. If this is a 3/4 inch arc. So we're going to move to, I should have specified X first. So X is, if this whole thing is 5 inches plus the radius of the tool, that's 5.25. So let's put in X 5.25 and then Y negative 0.75. Okay, but now we need our I and J. So I is like I said, the incremental distance from the start point to the midpoint along x. So if you think about x is right and left here, or x is really to the right, positive. So from here to here, along the x direction, it's actually 0. So I'm going to say I0. And then from here to here along the j direction, we know it's from here to here is the radius of the tool, which is 0.25. And from here to here is the radius of the arc, which is 0.75. So if you add those two up, the distance from here to here is 1 inch, but it's going in the y negative direction. So this is going to be a j negative 1. We're going to put a decimal in there. So let's plot this so far. Awesome, we got our arc. So just like G1 and G0, G2 and G3 are modal codes. So our next movement is linear. So we got to switch back to G1. And then where are we going to? Okay, so again, this is the origin. So, and this whole block is 3 inches in this dimension. So if we go 3 inches and then go back up the 0.75 to this, we're at y negative 2.25. So since we're just moving along y, we don't need to specify x again. Although it wouldn't hurt if we did, we could still put our x 5.25 in there again. Let's plot that so far. Oops, I made a mistake. Hopefully you caught my mistake. This is a negative. That's why it's good to have something like NC Viewer here. All right, so now we know we have another arc. So this arc is from here to here. So that's also a clockwise arc. So we're going to do G2. Then we're looking for an x of where we're moving to. So it's actually the same x as this point if you look at it. And that's that 5 minus 0.75, that's going to be 4.25. And then we're looking for our y. So it's we have 3 inches plus a 1/4 inch for the radius of the tool. So that's a negative 3.25. Okay, now we're looking for an I. So from here to the center of this arc is the radius of the tool plus the radius of the arc, or the radius of the part. So that's actually 1 inch, but it's going in the x negative direction, so it has to be negative 1. So I negative 1 with a decimal. And then along the y direction, that's actually no change from here to here. So we can just say J0. All right, so before we get too far into this, I'm just going to let you know, if you have an I or a J that's 0, you can actually leave it off. So a lot of code you'll see, if it doesn't need the J, if it's 0, it just won't be there. So just something to know. Let's plot this and see where we are. So we got that arc. So now we got another linear move to here. That's the absolute position of this is at x 0.75 because we have a 3/4 inch arc. We gotta switch back to G1. Plot that. We got that. And then we're going to arc again. So we have, again, it's a G2 arc. Let's look for our x. So if our origin's here, we're actually in the negative on the x. So that's negative by the radius of the tool, which is 0.25. Why not? Okay, so we're at, if this is, again, 3 inches minus the 0.75, this is y negative 0.2 or 2.25. Okay, now we're looking for an I and j. So this red line again represents our grappling hook or whatever we're using to swing around that corner. So along the x-axis, which is left and right, it's 0 from here to here. Along the y-axis, it's 1 from here to here. So I can say I0, J1. And that was in the positive y direction, so this is going to be now a positive j. Let's plot this. We got that. Now we're switching back to a linear move up to this point. So that's at, again, if this is the origin, we're 3/4 of an inch below it in y. So our x has not moved between these 2 points. We don't need to specify an x. Let's just do a y of negative 0.75. Plot that. We're at this point now. Now we got to finish this arc off. So again, we got a G2, the sum x. So from the origin, that's x 0.75 positive. And then we got a y, and that's, we're now above the origin, and that's y positive 0.25, which is the radius of the cutter. Okay, so now we're looking for an I and a j. So we're shooting our grappling hook over to this point, and that's along the x-axis. We've kind of picked up the pattern that these are all 1 inch long. So that's x, that's I1, and then it's going to be J0 because it's purely along the x-axis, not along the y. Let's plot that. All right, we're to this point now. So now this is called a lead out. We're leading out of the part, and it's common to have an arc out of the part. So if you've noticed, I actually messed up on this drawing. That red arrow was supposed to be from here up. But this is a 1 inch radius arc. So we're moving basically over 1 inch and up 1 inch in x and y. So from our current location, let's first look at this. This is a counterclockwise arc. This is our first G3. It works just like G2, but now we're using G3. And we have an X, so we're moving 1 inch positive in X, so that should be 1.75. And then Y, 1.25. So I'm just adding 1 inch to both these numbers we had above. And now we have an I. Okay, so ignore my red line. Imagine the red line here. And a lot of drawings, you can sketch these out. You might not have those red lines. So you have to kind of imagine that grappling hook shooting to the center of the arc. So from here up along X is actually 0. We're going to say I0. And then J from here up is going to be 1 inch. So we're doing a 1 inch arc. So we'll say J1. All right, so that's our exit point. So that's our whole part, and we hit all those points, which is awesome. So I think we'll stop the video there. There's always more to talk about, but we got more videos in this playlist. So yeah, pretty exciting. So let's continue on in the next one.